drinking alcohol. A teenager's story. And it is only fitting for me to talk about this if I actually get a bottle here. This is a bottle of alcohol, a whole 1 liter. And it says alcohol abuse is dangerous to your health. And this is my story. It started many, many months ago because I thought, this is actually quite cool. Let me start smoking cigars and whiskey. And I remember how I was so fascinated with going to those whiskey lounges and cigar clubs. So I started going to a few of them just to have a coffee. I love to take my mom for coffee. So 6 months ago, we walked into our very first cigar club or cigar. It was basically a cigar lounge, but part of a hotel. And we go upstairs. It was a long elevator. We go up all the floors, 5 floors from the ground level in the shopping center to this fancy hotel, 5 stars. And on the side of it, there's a cigar lounge. So I thought, this is jolly fun. I walk into the cigar lounge, while my mom was checking out the place and finding somewhere to sit. And I started to think, the smell, it stinks. I know we're talking about alcohol. But in that cigar lounge, that's where I went to the side and I saw all of that alcohol. And I thought, this looks really interesting. And again, all of this is part of the high life, having all this money and thinking, let me wear designer clothes, cigars and alcohol. And I remember seeing all these different bottles. There was a Johnny Walker Blue Label, because they say that's the fancy one. Blue Label. There was a bottle of Dom, all these fancy champagnes. And I remember thinking, well, right now I don't really have much cash, but it would be so nice to actually try that and see what that alcohol was like. Well, then being part of my community at the community center, sometimes guys would like to have a little bit of a drink. And naturally, my dad also liked to drink. He loves single malt whiskies, especially Macallan, Tamnavulin, all these different fancy brands. If you know whiskey, you'll understand Sherry Cask and Double Oak and all these kind of things. So from that day, I thought, well, let me try whiskey and let me see which one I like. If it's so expensive, each bottle, then I might as well try them and then find out which one I like. So every time I was with my dad and someone was having a whiskey with him, I'd say, Dad, please can I have a sip? And I would have a sip, a little bit of a sip. But it didn't take long before I was asking the guys that my dad was having whiskey with, hey, this Double Oak looks quite nice, or hey, this Tamnavulin Sherry Cask looks wonderful. Is it fine if I have a bit of a sip? Or is it fine if I taste a bit? They say, get a glass. Get a glass, boom, pour like this. There was one of the guys at the community center, we're going to call him Michael. And what Michael would do is he loved alcohol. He loved drinking alcohol. And one day there was a particular celebration, and that we were all celebrating. There was a lot of alcohol flying. And Michael came around to my dad and poured a singleton. This was like 50, I believe it was a singleton, 15-year-old. Hundreds of dollars for a bottle, very expensive. And this Michael came and poured my dad, if you can think of a glass like this, he poured 3/4 of that glass full. But my dad didn't want to drink, he didn't want to get drunk. So he took that glass and he put it on the side and left it. And then everybody continued at the center. What happened was, after everybody left the room, it was about half an hour later, this Michael came all the way back to my dad and then poured him another one, which my dad kind of just succumbed to his pressurization and then had that whiskey. Once everyone had left, I thought, well, this is, it looks quite fun. These guys are getting drunk. It looks like they're having a good time, but I don't want to be excluded. And I remembered my dad left that 3/4 full whiskey on the side. I went like this, everyone was away, took the whiskey, and I started to pound it. I had a quarter of it. I had another quarter, and then I finished the last half of it. Down like that. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever been drunk or had a lot of whiskey all at once, but the way I felt was instantly I realized my body has too much alcohol, and there was this kind of reaction that I was like, trying to vomit, but it wasn't enough whiskey, and it wasn't enough alcohol in such a short period, but it was enough for me for my body to react without even thinking and going, I need to get this alcohol out of my system. So after that, at the end of the community center, after the big celebration, there was a bit of food just to celebrate and, have a few snacks. So it was about 10 minutes and I was saying hello to everyone. Hey, Michael, thanks for the whiskey. This person, how's your day going? Just saying hello, introducing, making friends and that kind of stuff. 10 minutes later, I sit down, I go get some food, sit down at a nice table with my dad there, and I feel fine, but then boom, it hits me like a train wreck. Pa! That alcohol hit my system. And being drunk, it's as if there's my head and then my brain. And my brain feels like it's going like this, just like a wave in an ocean. And it was terrible. I felt like, it wasn't that the world was spinning. It was just that wherever I went, my movement was staggered and stagnated and slowed. And having that whiskey, although the flavor was interesting, wasn't very smooth, and it hit me. And it was at that moment that I realized, not he effed up, but it was at that moment that I realized that people don't drink whiskey purely for the taste or purely for that sharpness. They drink whiskey so that they can get drunk. And that's the purpose of it. Alcohol numbs the senses. And that was when I realized I don't want to do this again. But then over time from there, my body started to build up a tolerance. And whenever my dad had a drink with people, I would have a little bit of a drink, ask him for a sip. And it was literally today that I'm making this video, that I decided I'm quitting alcohol. I'm finished with all of it. Beers, ciders, everything. I want to tell you another thing. The very first time that I actually had a full beer by myself, I was in the mountains, in the Drakensberg Mountains, which is way within the country of South Africa, but it was the Drakensberg Mountains, and we stayed at this awesome resort. And our family wanted to do a hike. So we asked the receptionist, we said, how can we do the hike? She said, you follow this path and you take a right turn. So we go and we follow the path, and we took a right turn. But what happened was we actually inadvertently took the wrong path. And we kept on going. Now I thought that on this hike, a hike is, if you aren't familiar with being in South Africa, a hike means an excursion, a trip over the mountains, on the valleys, and we go and cover many, many kilometers. So we followed the path and we went a right turn, but we took the wrong right turn. And this started with an incline like that. It was hectic. For the first half an hour, my parents and I, we were all climbing, but I, because I'm young and youthful, managed to get a little bit ahead. What happened was I thought that this hike would loop around and then come back to the resort. But what happened was, because I was ahead, I thought, I'm going to get back faster. I want to get back for lunch. It was already 12. Lunch was at 2. So I kept on running. Instead of walking or hiking up the mountain, I ran and ran. An hour and a half later, I realized I'm already 8 to 10 Ks away from wherever my parents are. I should figure out where the hell I am and get back. There was something there called Crystal Falls, which is what I passed. A beautiful waterfall, luscious greenery and plants. It was beautiful. It smells fantastic. So I can even just remember it right now. But because I had run so far, I passed a second stream called Breakfast Stream, which I didn't realize what it was, but it was a small little trickle where there was water. I realized, so then on the way back, I went past Breakfast Stream, but I was sitting there washing my face off, washing all the dirt off and having a little bit of water from Breakfast Stream. And I was fiddling around inside there. You won't believe what I found. I found a beer, a cider inside the Breakfast Stream in this little bit of water. I took it out, put it in my pocket or in my pants, and I ran all the way back. I didn't want to drink it because I didn't want to be drunk. I didn't know how much beer. And when I got back, it wasn't 12, it was 4 in the afternoon. My parents had found the second pass to come down the mountain and figure out how to get there. But I managed to run all the way back. And by the time my legs were finished and my toes were killing me, my chest was burning, I cracked open that cider. Boom, smashed the cider. And within 30 seconds it was finished. Put the bottle away in my suitcase. I'm going to get it right now. Give me a second. I still have it. This is a very, very bottle. It means a lot to me. But that's why I quit alcohol. Because alcohol taught me all the lessons that it needed to teach me. And I've learned. And I've moved on. I hope you guys can too.